What is up? You have found I Like the Blazers. I am your host, Brandon Goldner, and I am stoked to share that today's guest is right here. Well, not actually here, but over Skype with us right now, the awesome Evan McCarthy. It's Evanem. You know who it is. Evan, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, man. Just hanging out in New Orleans, monitoring stuff from down here, down south. I'm doing well. Doing very well. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're monitoring from Blazers South is what I'm going to call New Orleans, even though that doesn't make any sense at all.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, when I wear Blazer gears, it's funny. So at work, on Twitter, our Blazer community, we have the joking Blazers in 6. And, like, I've said it so much at work that, like, when I wear Blazers gear in the office, I'll walk by and just hear someone be like, Blazers in 6. And I'm like, goddamn right, Blazers in 6. And they have, like, they have no idea what that even means. Like, no idea what that means. It's like, say, hey, it's true. Blazers in 6.
I love it. They don't need to know. It's fine. That's rad. I'm glad you're repping it down there. It's a lot. It's honestly, it's so much easier to be a Blazers fan in Portland, as you know. So you're doing the heavy lifting in not only a different city, but a different city with an NBA team. So props to you for heavy lifting.
I wish they cared more, but yeah. I mean, once Zion gets up and playing, it'll be different, but yeah.
I was going to say, like, once he's back, it's tough. You get, like, the most talented college player in a generation. He's just, like, out the first part of the year. Like, that'd be tough for any team to deal with.
For sure.
All right, but we are here to talk about the Blazers. Obviously, like, the thing we have to talk about is Rodney Hood. Last game against the Lakers, he snapped his Achilles. He's out for the year. It's really tough. I wanted to spit a couple stats and then just get your opinion. He was playing the best basketball of his career, arguably career best in effective field goal percentage, career best in field goal percentage. It was over 50% from the field. Career best in 3-point percentage, also right around 50%. Also averaging 3.5 rebounds, also a career best. And that was in 30 minutes a game. Evan, just to say, like, when that happened, what were your kind of initial thoughts seeing Rodney Hood go down?
Yeah, so it was really interesting. On Friday night was my company's holiday party. So I was tied up in that and wasn't able to watch the first part of the game. And then it ended around 10 o'clock New Orleans time, and then I went to go meet a lady friend at a bar. And I get to the bar, and as I'm waiting for her, I opened up Twitter, and I saw just one tweet that said, "Oh no, not Rodney too." And that's all I needed to read. Like, I didn't read anything else. I'm like, oh God, like he's out for the year. Something really bad happened. Later came to find out that that's exactly what had happened. He'd popped his Achilles and can be done for the year. And like I said, it's just devastating for a guy that took a pay cut. Reportedly took a pay cut to stay here in Portland because he felt that, you know, he wanted to be a part of this organization that gave him kind of a second lease on life when it comes to basketball, and playing out of his mind as far as being, and some nights the third, some nights the second option that we needed, being the guy, you know, last year, at the end of last year, in the summer, their decisions were made to not re-sign Aminu, and we traded Harkless because we needed a guy, kind of like a PJ Tucker guy, that's someone that you stick in the corner for when the guards pass you the ball, you can knock down that corner three, and he was that guy. And on top of just doing that, was able actually to put the ball on the floor and get to the basket and create his own shot. And then just for this to happen is, I just feel so bad for him. Like, when these injuries happen, like, for fans, like, we're fans and this is entertainment, but, like, you know, I always feel for him and his family, because that's the brutal part of it.
It really is. And I mean, there's been some reporting about how tough it was for him having to basically live at a hotel with his family. And then when he was traded to Portland, moved into like a rented space by himself without his family, without his wife and young kids, and how tough that was, but how much he redoubled his focus on basketball. And that's been so obvious. He was so critical for the Blazers during the playoffs last year. And like you said, it wasn't just his shooting. It was his work off the dribble. It was his work being able to create when the Blazers needed someone else to create. So I think it's really smart you bring that up, because I don't know how the Blazers are going to replace that. We are going to get to that in a little bit, but I wanted to, not to look backwards too much, but I want to admit something. I want to admit something on the pod. When this first happened, I was on the coast, and my internet wasn't great, and I was having a tough time following the game. And so I was basically getting ready to go to bed, and I was like, doing that thing when you kind of scroll through Twitter to like get a sense of like what happened during the game. It's like, okay, Blazers lost, going backwards. And then I saw a thing about the injury. My first reaction was that we got reporting the game before that his Achilles, the same one that he ruptured, was sore, and that he played anyway. So my first response was to fire off a couple of hot takes, and I basically said, thanks Blazers doctors and trainers, because he said his Achilles was sore and now he's ruptured his Achilles. Did that sentiment resonate with you at all? Is that a thought that maybe went through your head? And by the way, I went back and ended up deleting those tweets because I'm a coward. But like, does that sentiment, like, look, they let this guy play on a sore Achilles. Like, why did they do that? Did that run through your head at all when that happened?
Yeah, it does. And I had very strong feelings about the Kevin Durant coming back last year during the finals after he injured his leg 30 days earlier in the playoffs. And we all thought at first it was his Achilles, and like, no, they just injured his leg, and then they brought him back and he popped his Achilles, like we all thought was going to happen. So like I thought back to that, and at that time I was like, why would the organization do that to him? So I did have thoughts about this. Obviously, we can't put ourselves in the minds of the doctors and all that. They obviously don't want these players to get hurt. My thing is, and with Kevin Durant, it should have happened, and maybe in Rodney Hood's case, I mean, the circumstances were a little different. But I think that players need to have someone, whether it be an agent or manager, who steps in on their behalf and just says no. Like with Kevin Durant last year, the team said, okay, you're good. The doctor said you're good. If you give the player the green light, every single one of them are wired to play, and they're just going to play, like no matter what. And you need a voice of reason outside to step in and be like, no, he's not playing. Like, we need to figure out what's wrong with him, or he's not feeling it. Because again, the player will never do that, ever. And I wish that more guys had stuff like that. Because I'm a pro player in every scenario where, like, I don't blame guys for sitting out. Like, the whole Kawhi rest load management. Like, you see these type of injuries, and, like, I hope people are starting to get it. Like, yeah, okay, that makes sense. He's being smart about it. Again, Rodney's, it's tough. It was the game before, and, yeah, I read those reports that I don't know if he took himself out of the game, but he came out and was like, yeah, my Achilles is sore. Just really, really unfortunate. Yeah, really unfortunate.
It is unfortunate, and this is where, like, I'm going to read a couple comments and questions we got on Twitter, and I'm going to throw something else out there too, which is, first of all, I hope that the reporters who cover this team, I understand there's a delicate balance in the team that you cover as an NBA reporter, that you don't want to burn your bridges with that team. I understand that. And so it's easy for me to fire off a hot take on Twitter when my livelihood doesn't depend on someone getting upset with me and cutting off my access or what have you. But I sincerely hope that whatever decision-making led to Rodney Hood playing against the Lakers when he said his Achilles was sore, I hope that gets looked at. That's important. I want to know, what did the trainers and doctors, what types of protocols did they go through? Because if there's something that they could have done differently, or a way in which they manage this that could be managed better, I want to know what that is as a fan, to ensure that the players that come next are healthy. This isn't about laying blame at someone's feet. This is about making sure that whatever they're doing, they're making sure their players are super healthy. And I will say, I am not a doctor. Okay, I'm not a medical professional, but it is my understanding that something as simple as an ultrasound could detect a partial small tear in your Achilles. If you received a patient and said, my Achilles is super sore, if you have access to an ultrasound, which those teams definitely do, and also MRIs, because they can afford to do that and it doesn't matter, if that is what was bothering him, and I don't know if it was, but they could have done those diagnostic tests to make sure that there wasn't something structurally wrong. Now, maybe they did do that. It's possible, which is why I want to see the reporting about the decision-making and what kinds of things went into, verifying or confirming his complaint about his sore Achilles. That's important to me as a fan. A couple of questions or comments about this from Twitter, kind of on that point from 20,000 Thorns at 20,000 Thorns. Stotts remarked that Hood, quote, cleared the protocols. I would hope the organization is asking themselves if those are the same protocols that Wesley Matthews cleared in 2015. It's a legitimate and non-judgmental post hoc analysis that is warranted. And I would say that is a sentiment that I also share. So thanks to 20,000 Thorns. We also got a comment from Lonnie St. John at Lonnie St. John. I would encourage everyone who's looking to blame someone to watch the replay. Hood landed and quickly pushed off. The video shows that his Achilles was stretched a lot. Even a healthy, non-tight Achilles would be pushed to the limit. And Evan, can I ask, did you happen to see the a replay of when Hood got injured against the Lakers?
No. That stuff. I know some of it can be tough to watch, especially with the Achilles, because you can kind of see it happening. It's not like a broken bone. It's not like a Nurk situation when he broke his leg, where like I saw it live and I'm like, I will never watch that clip again. But no, I didn't get a chance to see it. Oh, yeah. I had the chance to see it. I chose not to see it.
I'm with you. This is one of the first times that I have actively not. I'm usually just whatever. I'm curious to see it just because I don't know why. But this time,
you want to be informed, yeah.
Yeah, I'm with you. I chose not to look at it. A couple more quick comments, and we can move on to another angle on this. But we have from Ian Charles Rose at Ian Charles 33. He commented, "There's no way to determine how bad an injury it is before it happens. It's kind of word of mouth from the player." I responded to him about my piece about, well, like if it's something that could be picked up on an ultrasound or MRI, then they could catch it. And he responded, that's only if it's severe enough to show. If it's just sore, you're probably not going to see anything. Achilles are super sensitive, especially for basketball players. And I just want to say that is totally fair. And again, we do not know, which is why I want to see that reporting. A couple more comments from Brenda Nuckton at Opera Brenda SLP. Not only is predicting injury pretty complicated, but the players play through pain all the time. And that's a really good point. So judging what pain is a potential catastrophic injury in the making of what is day-to-day NBA life is pretty tricky. Really good point, Brenda, which is why, again, would really like to know what kinds of things the team went through when they knew that his Achilles was sore. And the last one, kind of along the same lines, from a film by Quentin Tarantino at GL Swenson. Is there honestly a way to prevent it? He hadn't injured his Achilles. It was just sore. Evan Turner had Achilles issues last season and just kept randomly sitting out games. It's a huge and not well understood ligament. It can feel totally fine and then snap out of the blue. And that's true. The Achilles is something that even if you're perfectly healthy, it can go without any warning. So do you agree that if the team is not already doing it, that it would be useful for the team to just kind of double check the types of protocols they went through in this situation to make sure that if something like this happens again, that they're approaching it with the best possible science? Would you agree with that take?
Yeah, I do think putting the onus on the team and having them kind of check the processes of what's happening in that type of situation would be beneficial. I also think it'd be nice, and we get this way, and we get it with like the hot take media, which is bullshit, about like, again, going back to Kawhi Leonard and the load management type stuff, where like, yeah, okay, haha, we're all fans sitting on the sidelines laughing at these guys or making fun of them or criticizing them for sitting out. But then we see injuries like this, and like, I hope we can help change the stigma of like, if a player says he's not feeling right and wants to sit out, that's fine. Because like you said, Achilles can pop at any time, even if it's not sore or whatever. But like, would it have hurt if Rodney Hood was like, hey, I want to sit out a game or two? I don't, I personally would not fault. I would never fault the players for doing that.
Right. And you know what's the most frustrating part about the, as you said, at the hot take media who gives players a hard time for managing their workload? It's a lot of this is coming from former NBA players. Right? It's coming from people who've played in the league in the past. They're like, well, back in my day, Isaiah Thomas, and Larry Bird. It's like, look at those dudes' careers were cut short. Does anyone remember that Michael Jordan took like a year and a half off from basketball altogether? Is that not load management? I mean, does Larry Bird and his back and I'm thinking of like Kevin McHale had like a broken foot, and they told him in the 80s, they're like, look, dude, if you keep playing on this, it's going to cause a permanent disability. And lo and behold, it did. And these are the same players making fun of people for not wanting to have a career altering and life altering injury. And that's really the thing, isn't it? It's like, this isn't even just about how they manage the rest of their career. This is about being able to participate in their lives in the way in which they want to when they're 35, 45, 55, 65 and beyond. So
100%.
Yeah, no, I am with you. I think that I do think, though, luckily the shift towards understanding that science, I think that we're getting there. We're not all the way there yet. Well, let's talk about how this injury affects the team and who else might be able to step up in his absence. Let me throw in a couple more. We got a pretty robust response from Twitter. Obviously, it was in the wake of the Rodney Hood injury. So from Jared H at Nervous Orca says, I have a question. Why? And I'm like, yeah, dude, I think that we're all feeling a little bit like that. And another one from Chrissy at dgin_and_juice. It sucks so much, but Hood has always been a home. Hood always has a home in the hearts of Blazers fans. Dude became a Blazer hero when he iced that fourth overtime. He'll probably pick up the player option with hard work through rehab and a little luck. We'll see him on the court sometime next season. So maybe that's a good, before we move on to what they're going to do the rest of this season. It's also my sense that he will pick up the player option. He probably will be here next year because of this injury, when maybe that was put into question before. Do you have any thoughts about that? He's a relatively young dude. He's still in his 20s. I'm hopeful he can come back just as strong as ever. How are you feeling about his future in Portland?
Yeah, I think it would make sense. He was playing well, but the sample size for this year, I think for another team to give a look at him and be like, oh yeah, let's offer him a 3-year deal. That's probably not super realistic. What is the player option for next year? How much is it? Do you know off the top of your head, or do you have that in front of you?
Damn it, Evan. You know
what?
Is
it like 8 or something like that?
If you keep talking and stall, I can look it up really quick.
Yeah, from all accounts, it sounds like he obviously loves it in Portland. Going back to one of your previous points, and with Kevin Durant, he left Golden State after that debacle, and there was speculation about if he blamed the team doctor. So it'd be the one wrinkle in it would be, how does he feel about getting health advice from these doctors if this just happened to him, right? I don't know. I have no idea what his mindset is when it comes to that.
Right. And by the way, Rodney Hood, the option next year is only $6 million. If you don't count that, if you do count this season, he's only made, I say only in quotes because these are NBA players, but he's only made $16 million in his entire career.
Oh, wow. And
then he has the $6 million option for next year. He's 27 at this point. So he's not one of those players who signed a massive contract and can just cash out. So
yeah,
for kind of a long-term, generational wealth standpoint, he still, and obviously he wants to play for the sake of it, but he still has a lot to prove there. So yeah, just that $6 million next year, I expect that to be picked up at this point. But let's talk about, Rodney Hood out for the year. Who else can step up in his absence? And I think that this question from Chris McKee, shout out to Chris at Chris McKee TV. Chris was my friend in middle and high school, and I appreciate him following me on Twitter now, as he's a news reporter down in New Mexico. But Chris asks,
nice.
Yeah, he's doing good stuff. Who has a chance to step up their game and fill the notably big void that Hood leaves with his injury? And he offers Anfernee Simons. Evan, what do you think about Chris's question?
Yeah, so I was thinking about who would fill in for the starting lineup. I know we've had success this year running the 3-guard lineup with Anfernee Simons in certain spots. I'm not sure if that's sustainable over extended minutes in games. I don't know if you can start Anfernee Simons in that spot. In certain situations, I think defensively it's just going to be tough. Even though Anfernee Simons is no slouch on defense, he's actually a pretty decent defender. I was thinking about, do you start Nas, Nasir Little? But then it's like, if you start Nas, and that means either Hazonia or Tolliver's got to come off the bench and give Carmelo a breather, and those two guys aren't good. So that's scary. And then I thought, well, okay, fine, then just keep bringing Nas off the bench. And then, the other obvious answer is Kent Bazemore. But I think Terry likes bringing him off the bench too. So, maybe It's tough. It does put us in a tough spot. I could see him starting Kent Bazemore, which is go for it.
No, I mean, like, I think that's totally fair. And Stotts is one of the more creative coaches when it comes to filling a void in his starting lineup, because he doesn't like to mess with the bench rotation. So he'll just kind of randomly throw in someone who like hasn't been getting any minutes at all, rather than mess with the bench rotation, which is just something that's been a hallmark of him as a coach. But I mean, I want to think about this question from who starts, maybe less important than who is going to pick up the majority of those minutes. And when you think about, I wish I had that chart that shows when players are in the game at certain times through the first, second, third, and fourth quarters. But who's going to take the majority of those minutes and how the deck is going to be reshuffled? I mean, if you were to pick one or two players between Nas Little, Anfernee Simons, Kent Bazemore, and then, God forbid, Anthony Tolliver or Mario Hezonja, are there one or two players that you think are going to get like a notable bump in minutes to make up for that 30 minutes a game that Rodney Hood's going to be leaving on the table?
Yeah, so looking at it now, Anfernee already plays 21. So, I mean, giving him 8 to 9 more minutes a game could make sense, and then spreading out the rest of it. Like I said, Simons, the 3-guard lineup has worked in certain spots against certain lineups. So I think there, and I think Nas, the problem with Nas is that he's not a very good 3-point shooter at this point in his career. Obviously, as a rookie, he still needs to get better at that, to catch and shoot 3, which Rodney Hood obviously was fantastic at this year. Kent Bazemore is a pretty good catch and shoot 3, but the issue I have with Kent Bazemore is sometimes he dribble, like he, in my mind, is a dude that when he gets the ball in his hand, he either needs to pass or shoot within like 1 second, because when he puts the ball on the floor, he gets a little wily. But those would be the 3 guys. I don't see, I mean, maybe he gives Gary Trent Jr. a little bit more minutes, but it just depends on what the team's goals are going to be. Like, is this team still going to fight for an 8 seed, or do, Dame and CJ, Dame's playing 38, 39 minutes a game, CJ's at 36. They don't need to be playing that much. Like, maybe you dial their minutes back and give Simons more minutes, give Nas more minutes, and then just, play it out. Like, not tanking, but just ride with that.
I find it really tough to believe that the Blazers are going to take their foot off the gas, even if I think that maybe this season looks more and more.
And the Melo bump would suggest that they wouldn't, right? Because Melo has really give this a bump, and it's like, re-energize the team and the fans. So yeah, I mean, I think that's a good point.
No, he really has, but it's tough because you think about all roads, in my mind, when I think about the Blazers and what they're going to do this year and in the coming years, all roads lead through maximizing Damian Lillard's prime. He's 29. So he only has 3, 4, maybe 5 more years, if you're lucky, of him playing at the tippy top of his game. And even though he's locked in for a long time and he's contractually obligated, I don't see the Blazers punting on the season, even if it looks more and more like that would not be the worst choice in the world. But working against that is the fact that the bottom of the West, I mean, has the 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 seed has not been as good as I thought it would be. And I guess I would think that if the Blazers were, 4 games out of 500, if you had asked me before the season, okay, that's where they're going to be on December 8th, I'd be like, well, they're already out of it, but that's just not the case. Yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, a little bit on Simons really quick. I mean, he's averaging 10 points a game in 20 minutes. It's been kind of a tale of 2 seasons. His first 10 games, he was 50% from the field, 40% from 3. But in the last 13 games, he's been 35% from the field and 28% from 3.
Yeah.
They're going to need more minutes from him. Kent Bazemore, as you said, I mean, it's weird. I mean, not to just be looking around at Basketball Reference, but that's exactly what I'm doing. Even though he's shooting 34% from deep, he's shooting only 34% from the field, which means he's not shooting well from 2. That's terrible. They can't rely on Tolliver. They can't rely on Hezonja. Nasir Little, is a 19-year-old rookie. Yeah, it's just I don't know,
man. Tough, man.
It's tough. So with that, knowing that their current roster, it's tough. What do you think about a trade? I mean, so let's say that the Blazers are thinking from a maximize Dame's prime standpoint, and they're not looking to punt the season. Let's say the Blazers are looking to bolster their lineup even more. We did get a question from Hoodie Rich at the official MAB, who asked, who do you think the Blazers might target at the trade deadline? Now, his question said, other than Kevin Love, but I do want to entertain that Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN reported a couple days ago that the Cleveland Cavaliers are now ready to listen to offers for Kevin Love, who is 31, who has 3 years and $90 million left on his contract, who is getting 16 points a game, 10 boards, shooting 37% from deep on 6 threes. It's not like the Blazers couldn't use Kevin Love. What do you think about that?
I have been firm from the jump that no trade for Kevin Love, because what you said, like the numbers look great and people always quote them to me, which is awesome. But then I'm always like,
just
he's
like
31. but you also included the most important part, which is that he's 31. He makes a lot of money the next 3 years, and he's injury prone with like nagging weird injuries all the time. He would, I mean, in a perfect world, if salaries didn't matter, he would be a good fit for the Blazers. I don't know. In order to get him, what you're going to have to give up is salary. So Whiteside or Kent Bazemore, because they're expiring contracts, and Cleveland's not going to want to take anything more than what doesn't expire this year. So you got either one of those two. If you trade Hassan Whiteside, then your only real true center on the team is Skal the BCA. Because Kevin Love, in one tweet, someone sent me like, play Kevin Love at the 5. I'm like, are you insane? Like, no, he's not going to play the 5 for us. So no, I wouldn't Kevin Love. I think a realistic trade that I would like them to do is, so we're going to have 2 guys, Kent Bazemore and Hassan Whiteside. 2 contracts are coming off the books if we don't move them this year. We know, and so the Blazers are theoretically going to have cap space this next summer. If they were to make a trade and trade those guys, I would want the Blazers to look at players who have a few years left on their deal that aren't Kevin Love, that are younger, that even if they don't come in and have a huge impact this year, maybe do the next few years. Because as we know as Blazer fans, free agents don't sign in Portland. So the way you get them is you got to trade for them when they've got time left on their contract so we can keep them. Because my biggest fear is 2016 comes, we don't make any trades. And then Olshey has a panic attack like he does in 2016 and then just says, I can't sign anyone. I'll just overpay Whiteside and Bazemore to stay here. Like, that's what I fear.
Well, I want to sneak in to say the free agent class in this upcoming year is not looking super robust, and like lots of players who were expected to maybe be on the market have signed extensions. That means that teams, like you just said, teams are going to be overpaying mediocre players in this free agent class. And so you're right that if the Blazers are going to get better, it's going to be via trade. So, I mean, if not Kevin Love, I mean, and this is a name that's come up a ton, but what about Aaron Gordon with the Magic? He's 24, not having his best season this year. A couple years ago was averaging about 18 points and 8 boards and shooting around 35% from deep. Numbers have come down a bit, but he's only 24. Would that be more kind of in your pocket? I mean, I don't see why the Magic would do that same deal, because I do think you could get Kevin Love, like you said, for Whiteside, Bazemore, and parts. I don't know if you could get Aaron Gordon for the same, but would that be somebody who you'd be more interested in just because of the potential kind of long-term fit there?
Yeah, I like the idea of long-term. Can he play the 3, or does he strictly play the 4?
He can play the 3. He actually won it. If you're on Basketball Reference, one of his seasons, it says that he played mostly at small forward. And actually, they have a pretty cool thing if you scroll, and I'm probably going to overshoot it, but it shows position estimate. So in 2016-17, he played about 65% of his minutes at small forward. This year, only 22% of his minutes at small forward. So yeah, he can. That is something he can do.
Yeah, because I mean, the other thing that we've noticed this year is, even though it's a small sample size, as long as Nurk is a starting center, Zach Collins, and that's the other reason I don't want to trade for Kevin Love and have him for the next 3 years, because Zach Collins is going to be the starting forward. He looked really good with the small sample size to start the year. I thought he looked really good, and he's so young. So if Aaron Gordon come in and play the 3, that's great. Otherwise, you're bringing him in, and then Zach's going to come off the bench, and I don't know if that's the long-term goal they want for Zach for now. So yeah, Aaron Gordon, could make sense.
What about these are all names that have come up
Yeah,
before.
throw these out. No, I haven't really looked at them.
What about a reunion with LaMarcus Aldridge?
I love it. I've been screaming that forever. I love LaMarcus, and I know that people get really emotional when LaMarcus's name comes up and the whole like, oh, he abandoned us, blah blah blah. I don't care about any of that. From what I've heard or read, it sounds like he wants to eventually come back or come back now. There were rumors, like last year, 2 years ago, that he was telling Dame to tell O'Shea to trade for him.
Yep.
I would love LaMarcus to come back because he's a guy who it sounds like he's totally fine with being the second or third fiddle. At his position, what's great about LaMarcus, and there's a few guys like this in the NBA, is that his game is not predicated on athleticism. He's got that high release jump shot where he jumps like 2 inches off the ground, and he can knock that down all day. He's got good length on defense, so him next to Nurk on defense, I think it'd be great. I would love a reunion with LaMarcus Aldridge.
Yeah, it's too bad he's had kind of a bit of a slip defensively this year. But, I mean, look, the dude is, 34 and change, so it's to be expected.
Yeah, and who is he playing next to? I mean, I agree that he's had a slip defensively, but you put him next to Nurkic, and, oh, man, I think that would be deadly because then he's got Nurkic as like an anchor.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that'd be a great fit. I have no issues with that at all. One more name to throw out, again, another familiar name that's come up. What about Blake Griffin? Any interest there?
The injuries really scare me, and what you would have to give up to get him. I think the fans would obviously love him. But the fans love everyone that we bring in. I mean, let's be honest. Like literally anyone we bring in, the fans are obsessed with.
We ended up loving Carmelo Anthony, and I mean, wow, I didn't see that coming.
Exactly. Of the three, I would lean towards, or the four, I guess, because Aaron Gordon, Kevin Love, LaMarcus, and Blake Griffin. If I had to rank those, I would go LaMarcus, Aaron Gordon, Blake Griffin, Kevin Love, and Kevin Love like way down the list. I just have no interest in Kevin Love. But Blake, yeah, I mean, it's weird because he's had injury issues pretty much his whole career, and especially in Detroit. And I've always felt in Detroit like it just doesn't seem like he's ever really wanted to be there. And like, I feel like Portland,
can you blame him? I mean,
no, you cannot blame him. And with Portland, it's like that's a destination because like we have good players. And I think coming out of Detroit, I think he would be appreciative of a lot of places that maybe he wouldn't normally be. So I mean, I wouldn't be against it, but then again, like, what do you have to give up to get him? Because here's the issue, and you touched on this. We have expiring contracts, so we can trade expiring contracts to bad teams. But like you mentioned, bad teams or small markets like Portland cannot sign free agents, and this year is especially a bad free agent market. So if you're a bad team, why do you want to bring in an expiring contract, knowing that like if I sign anyone, I'm going to have to overpay someone, like just like the Blazers overpaid Evan Turner that in 2016 because it's the only way we can get free agents is if you overpay them.
Yeah, it's true. That's unfortunately being in this market. That's kind of the way it works, right? Is that you have to pay, 110 cents on the dollar to get someone here if you're going to try to lure them free agency. So it's going to be trades. I mean, if it were me, I don't mind any of those moves, really. I mean, the whole thing about Zach Collins' development, if you do think about LaMarcus Aldridge or Blake Griffin or Kevin Love, either they're a little bit older or they will be injured to the point where Zach Collins can still get plenty of minutes off the bench if that's going to be his role. And if they get injured, hey, you have like a starter level power forward there waiting in the wings. Aaron Gordon, I'm not as sure about. The Aaron Gordon thing would be, can Coach Stotts and Damian Lillard tease out some consistency and talent like they have with players in the past, like with Aminu and with Harkless and with others, and make him better than he's showed so far in his career, which is possible. I do want to talk about the Blazers as a team, but one more kind of question about the injury and how it affects the team. There's a question here from Leal at the Blazers fan. It's kind of a long one, but let me spit it out and then get your response. From the Hood injury, silver lining, is this the year that we have to suffer to get a championship? Everyone comes back healthy next year, appreciating this team organization where they're at in life. We play that much harder after adding a big piece with their cap space. Think about it. Nurk and Hood have gruesome injuries. Melo had 1 foot out of the league. Zach gets a chance maybe to start after missing a season, and maybe our young guys develop. Just a thought. Got to stay positive. What do you think? Could this be a gap year to vault the Blazers into legitimate title contention? Is that at any kind of in your thinking at all? Is that possible?
Yeah, I mean, the one bit, and we just touched on it, about adding a legitimate piece of the cap space, don't expect that again. I mean, even Neil Shea's at the point where he admits that we can't sign free agents. So, like, don't expect that. Yeah, I mean, it could.
Or
I mean,
via trade. I would kind of sneak. They didn't say that, but like a big piece. Either.
I thought you said cap space, but yeah,
no, they did. They said cap space, but I am now editorializing either cap space or trade.
Well, and it's the point taken with we can absorb contracts coming in that have. So we have 2 expiring contracts that will give us cap space, but if we trade for a guy that's got 3 years left on a deal, then we're using that cap space. So yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, it's just going to come down to finding a team at the deadline who is not playing as well as they thought they were, and they've got a piece or two. You know, there's a couple of guys out there that just they're willing to part ways with. You know, to title contention, it's tough. I mean, I think last year making the Western Conference Finals put a weird tint over a lot of fans' eyes, where like you step back and look at it, we got lucky with Anfernee Simons going off in the last game of the season to get us the seed that we got. Played great against the Thunder in Denver, coming back and winning the 7-game series against Denver. But like, if we would have had the other seed, we would have played the Warriors in the second round and got swept. So like, yeah, we made the Western Conference Finals and played pretty well against Golden State for 3 of the games before losing, getting swept. But I don't. Yeah, the pieces are going to be interesting. I do think the piece about the younger guys developing more is big. Nurk coming back is going to be huge. I think defensively, he's going to help so much.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Obviously, and hopefully the biggest thing I'm looking for, I'm hoping that Nurkic will come back just as strong. And the good news is that for the closest corollary to the injury he suffered was Paul George, who came back and, was playing at an MVP level. So that's good news for that kind of injury. Actually, there was one more question here. It sort of bridges the gap between the injury and the Blazers getting back on track just in general with their schedule. It's from Stay Mellow, Blazers in 5, at Justin B. Leak. Blazer fandom is quite used to letdowns and setbacks, be it tragic injury or otherwise. For me, the love of basketball and rooting for our guys through the rough times makes the successes that much sweeter. What do you do to stay positive and keep the fun going during times like this? It's a great question. Evan, what do you do to keep it going?
So I look for little things to have fun with. Like the whole Melo thing wasn't necessarily a little thing, but I was excited to be like, my whole thing is for teams that I like the Blazers, either be good or be bad and be weird and funny. Like, make it interesting for me, because I'm going to watch every game regardless. Just don't be boring. So it's that. And then I've done a really good job as a sports fan of being able to remove myself and not be like a crazy sports fan where like this is all entertainment to me. And I love watching every game, and I'm a huge Blazer fan, but like I'm not the type of person where a loss is going to ruin my weekend or a day. Like I can compartmentalize kind of what's going on in life. And, life is, everyone has so much going on in their life, and watching and being a Blazer fan is a part of it. But, I see some of these tweets from people online where like, they literally, like, I worry, like, are you going to be okay? This is just, it's entertainment. Like, let's just enjoy it. The good and the bad, like that gentleman said about like, rooting for them during the hard times make the success much sweeter. That's absolutely true.
I just think it's funny that you bring up the people who take it too seriously. And sometimes I am that person, to be completely honest, but I was talking to my colleague about, we both had childhoods in which our parents took sports too seriously. Mm-hmm. And it was a huge bummer, actually. I mean, I remember there were days when it was like, if the Blazers won, my dad was in an awesome mood. And if they lost, that night was going to suck. So yeah, don't be that person. For me, what keeps it interesting is watching the players who get a chance to step up, like thinking about how can Simons do? How can Nasir Little do? How can Gary Trent Jr. do with these injuries and these opportunities? For me, that makes it fun. And you get to see people who don't normally get to play. But yeah, it's just, it's tough. And for the Blazers, they're obviously gonna miss Rodney Hood. I will say, and here's my weak attempt at a transition. They started 5-12. They're now 9-14. So they've gone 4-2 in their last 6 games, and they've lost to the Clippers and the Lakers. So they're not really beating good teams. But And as you and I talked about a little bit before we started recording, here are their next 8 games. They're playing the Thunder, Knicks, Nuggets, Suns, Warriors, Magic, Wolves, Pelicans. Only 2 of those games on the road, and only one of those teams, the Nuggets, are over 500. So Blazers 9-14 only have 1 game in their next 8 against a team over 500 and only 2 games on the road. Is it possible that the Blazers can get to right around 500 in these next 8 games?
Yeah, I mean, on paper, obviously, you would think so. It's the one variable is we don't know how they're going to react to the Rodney Hood injury. If Rodney Hood were healthy, then I would say, yeah, for sure. I mean, this season's been weird. You mentioned were we 9-13 or 9-14?
9-14, I think.
Well, I got it right here. I think.
Yeah, they're 9-14.
9-14. I was looking at it. 9-14. We have 1 win against a team with a winning record. Then, do you know who that team was?
I don't remember. Who was it?
Dallas Mavericks, who are playing insanely well right now. So that's the only win we have against a team with a winning record.
That was a good win.
Which, it is a good win.
I mean, but that's the thing, is that they're only playing 1 team over 500 in the next 8 games. So
That's what I'm saying. So
it might be perfect.
We can definitely. So to get to 500 after 8 games, you'd have to obviously, if we went, so we're 9-14. You would have to go, if you went, you'd have to go 6-2. 7-1 would get you above 500. So that could be tough, because you're 9-14. If you get 7 wins, you're at 16, and lose 1, you're at 15. So maybe if they went 6-5, if they went 5-3 over the 8 game spread, I would consider that a huge W. A winning record over that 8 games would be great, right?
Yeah, I think that's a more realistic target to put, not to get to 500, but just to play over 500 during that time.
Exactly.
It's also true, though, that this team has a habit of going on these weird hot streaks at odd times, and it's happened in seasons when they didn't have a lot of talent. I mean, you think back to the season after LaMarcus left, and they were supposed to be a lottery team, and wasn't that the year they won 13 straight? So it's not like they had a ton of talent doing that. I don't know. It's these next. So here's what I'll say. If the Blazers don't go significantly over 500 in those 8 games, so if they don't play, like you said, if they don't go 5-3 or better, basically in those 8 games, this season is in serious jeopardy of being lost, even with the bottom of the West being as bad as it is. But I have faith. I have hope. Are there any?
You want to talk silver linings? Let's get Simons in some minutes. I would love to. Like, coming into this season, none of us in the team basically. I don't know if they admitted this, but it was known that Nasir Little wasn't going to play at all, basically. So now this is a good opportunity. Like, get that kid just a ton of minutes. Just give him 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes. We used to say the same thing about Zach Collins, right? Last year, like, give the guy minutes. The difference being last year we were good. But yeah, I think it's going to be a good opportunity to get him minutes to see what he's about. And then Simons obviously is going to get minutes regardless. But he needs, obviously, like you mentioned earlier in the podcast, good first 10 games, not so great last 13 games, which is going to happen when you're 20 years old and finally playing and getting consistent minutes. So he's just got to play through it. And I'm excited to see him play through it and how he reacts.
So am I. And like you said, it's basically his rookie season. And to the point about, we've talked about it a little bit, but just one more, because we got a later question that got snuck in here from Dr. Funkenstein at Dr. Funk says,
yeah, dog.
who would you rather see get the most minutes after Rodney Hood's injury? And the 3 they shout out are between Nasir Little, Kent Bazemore, and Mario Hezonja. Of those 3, who would like to see play the most?
Nasir Little, for
Me
sure.
Too. Yep, I'm with you.
For sure.
I mean, and by the way, even though Nasir Little he's shooting pretty horribly from deep, under 20%, he's willing to take them, which is good to see. He's going to make them at some point, and he's 19, I mean, he's got so much time, and I just appreciate, the thing I appreciate about Nasir Little, which I'm definitely not the only one, he plays with such effort and such care. I mean, that kind of thing is actually really important, especially for a team that's down talent. To play like you give a shit is super important, and that's something he brings. So yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. I had a tweet the other day where I was thinking about it. Like, he gets his stints when he plays, and I was, oh, sorry, a little video came up. So he gets his little stints, and I was like, you watch him play in these chunks of time, and I'm like, he's never really had given bad minutes where you're like, oh God, get him off the floor. So that's been good. The thing I love about him, and it's the same thing with Zach Collins and Anfernee Simons, is none of them are scared, which I love. And I think as Blazer fans, we were hesitant because that was like, and I love the guy, but Myers, that was the thing with Myers, right? Like, he looks scared and not confident all the time.
Yep.
And like, so whenever we got these new guys coming in, it's like, oh God, are they going to also be like that? And those three guys are not. They are very confident. Like, Zach Collins is so confident and just not afraid, when he's chasing Klay Thompson down the floor, yelling at him after blocking a shot. Like, he doesn't care, and I love it.
It's so important for professional sports to, I mean, you talk about so many different ways of saying it, having a short memory when you miss a shot, or acting like you've been there before, but being able to stay in the moment and not worry about how well or poorly you're playing is so important in professional sports. And, not to harp too much on Myers Leonard, who, I think by all accounts is having a pretty decent season there in Miami and having a good time doing it. You're right. It was just evident on his face that he was thinking and he was concerned about when he wasn't doing well. And then when he did do well, he would get overhyped. And just to see young players on the Blazers play like whether it goes in or out, it doesn't matter. It makes a huge difference. Yeah. And it's going to be exciting to see them moving forward.
With Myers, to make up, because I've had unkind tweets from way back in the day, but I've totally come around on Myers while he was still with the Blazers.
I have too. I was blocked by him for many years.
Were you really? Yeah. So my thing, to make up for it, your boy, before it sold out, I did buy the Miami Vice Myers Leonard jersey. It's in the mail, or it's coming. Yeah, it's coming.
That's
they have
awesome.
To, make it. So
is it the teal primary color? Yeah. Oh man, those are sick. By the way, those are dope.
So the Miami Heat store was like 12 Eastern. We're gonna go live with them, which is like, come on, which 11 o'clock my time. And during the week I go to bed kind of early, but like I set my alarm to make sure, got in there, bought it, and then like the next day or 2 days later, I went to go see if you could order one, and they were like, you can only buy like either Dwayne Wade or someone else, and that was it.
By the way, speaking of that teal color, you tweeted out a picture of yourself wearing a fucking awesome outfit. You had the Sugar G Dame 5 colorways, and you had the teal shirt, you had the teal accent jacket, and then beyond that, I'm looking at this picture of your room. Is this your room? You have the shoes up, like displayed on the wall, professional like?
Yeah. So I do. Like, I started buying sneakers more seriously probably like 3 or 4 years ago. And yeah, when I came down here, and shout out to Shea Serrano, who I'm sure is a big listener of the show.
Oh yeah.
I noticed in his office, he has like these wood panels where he put a few shoes, and I thought it was really cool. And like, I didn't know where to find like something like that. So I like Googled like just like shelving wood panel. And then the ones that you're looking at came up, I think on Target. And I was like, that's really cool. So I bought 6 of them, and I rotate them out, but they're typically like my 6 either rare or more expensive ones that I put up. They're all of them right now are Jordans, but yeah, it's fun. And I've still, I've been trying to chill out on buying the shoes, but I'm susceptible to seeing a good deal and jumping on it.
I have those same the Sugar G Dame 5 colorways. Not only they look awesome, they perform really well on court.
So you've played in them?
Yeah, and that's the thing.
Awesome.
Yeah, I will say it's like it's too bad because I both try to keep them clean and I also play in them, which is kind of hard to do both at the same time.
Yeah,
but they're great shoes. Yeah, it's a sick setup. I dig that quite a bit. All right. Well, with that, are there any closing thoughts or like parting shots with kind of where the Blazers are now and the stretch they're going into? Anything that comes to mind, or if you think we pretty much covered it?
No, I think so. To fans that are listening, the ones that overreact, like, just chill out, enjoy the ride. Like, literally think of this as entertainment. Enjoy it. You take the good times with the good, the bad with the bad. Laugh off the bad stuff. Like, don't. And I've seen stuff like, don't go into players' tweets and talk shit to them or coaches. Like, just chill out with all that stuff. This is entertainment. They're there to entertain us. We all have lives outside of this. Keep that in mind. Also, can I have a few things coming up. Can I promote a few things?
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
So we kind of touched on the top. I'm from Portland, Oregon, born and raised from Portland. Moved to New Orleans for a job opportunity literally a year ago. Like, my year anniversary was just like last week. So I do Evanem. I'm an artist, and I do Portland-based T-shirts. It's kind of slowed down a little bit since I moved down here with a new job because I've been so busy. But I do have an Anfernee Simons shirt coming out in January. The plan right now, where I'm working on it, and I don't want to go into too many details because it's being ironed out, but I'm hoping to have January 31st, which is the Blazers are playing at the Lakers. So having a viewing party pop-up where the shirts will be available.
Nice.
Details are coming. I'm still working on the design, but I've already contacted my printer in Portland. So it's great for me. So I'm going to fly from New Orleans to Portland. I have a printer that I used to use in Portland who's excited. I haven't done work with him in a little while. But he's like, yeah, fly in. We'll have the shirts ready for you. And I could have them available there. I'm also, for that pop-up party, I'm planning and hoping to have a really awesome new Carmelo print that I'm working on.
Nice.
Yeah.
Dude, let me know if you need any, like, help with anything or just promotion or whatever, donations, or I'm definitely buying a few of those. I mean,
sure.
Listeners should know that I have bought your stuff over the years.
Oh, yeah.
And actually, I had one of my funnier moments kind of just walking down the street one day in downtown Portland. I was wearing the Dame to Be Coming Up Clutch shirt, which is modeled after the Dare to keep kids off drugs. I was walking down the street with that shirt on, and I walked by this younger couple, probably in their early 20s, and they very clearly did like a double, triple take and then started chuckling at me. And as they passed, they mentioned something like, I forget what they said, but they said something about Dare and like what bullshit. And I turned around like, wait. And they turn around kind of surprised, like take a closer look. And they look at it, and then they both bust up laughing. They thought I was actually wearing a Dare shirt. So I had to tell them how it was. It was funny. We had a good conversation about it, but
yeah. Shout out to Jason Cobb. It was his idea. Jason Cobb is an awesome individual I used to work with years ago at Jet Sports, which are some of the, in the Portland area, some like stores that sell like jerseys and hats and all that. And one day randomly he hit me up and he was just like, he wrote me a DM. He's like, do the Dare shirt with Dame. And that's all he said. And I was like, oh my God. and then I was like, dude, I mean, you've made shirts before. Like, I don't want to like take your idea. And he's like, no. He's like, I want you to do it. And I was like, all right, well, I'll do it. So shout out to Jason, my man. And when I tweet the link out to this podcast, I'm sure he'll listen because he's a really good guy. So
nice.
Shout out.
That's rad. Well, heck yeah, dude. If people wanted to connect with you on Twitter, like what's your Twitter handle? What's the best way to get in touch with you and your website and all that?
Yeah, so website's evanem.com, and it's spelled Evanem. Kind of like Eminem. People give me shit. But also my initials are EM, so it's like Evan, EM. Evanem PDX is my Twitter handle. You can find me there. Also Instagram, Evanem PDX, where I post a lot of like updates on art and prints and stuff like that. So those are the two best ways to find me on social. And then again, evanem.com for the website. So you can go look at some previous stuff. Go look at a lot of cool shirts that are sold out that you can't buy. And I get hit up on Twitter all the time asking if I'm going to reprint it. And I'm like, I don't know, maybe. And they're like, oh, if you reprint it, I'll buy it. And yeah. So you can go look at that too.
Christmas is coming up.
I know.
Well, cool. Thanks, man. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me on. Anytime you need a guest, let me know because I love talking Blazers.
Thank you again so much to Evan McCarthy, Evanem. You can again find his work at evanem.com and hang out with him on Twitter at EvanemPDX. And obviously look for that pop-up shirt party in January. It's going to be a ton of fun. And thank you all for your questions and comments on Twitter. That was like the most robust response that we've gotten in the history of the podcast. I really appreciate that. Another thing that appreciate if you want to reach out to us at ILiketheBlazers on Twitter and Facebook, ILiketheBlazers@gmail.com. But the thing that would help the most, if you're able to, if you have time, is to please give us a review and a rating on Apple Podcasts or Google Play or Spotify or however you get your podcasts, because those reviews and those ratings help so other people can see the show. And that would really, I mean, it's kind of an inconvenience. It's sort of a hassle, but it makes a huge difference. If you could help with that, that'd be rad. And with that, that's our episode for today. Until next time, I am your host, Brandon Goldner, and go Blazers.